My name is Janice Williams. This is Coffee Havoc number 2. So, I want to talk to you guys about some stuff. I don't know what that is. So we're just gonna go there. I guess when that pops out, I'll hit the clean now button. I'm sorry. This video is about Marvel superheroes revamping and recapping. Okay? So I've watched a lot of, I think it's like Mojo and some other stuff involving comic books. And I want to talk to y'all about that. As you can see, I'm in an Avengers shirt. I'm more Marvel than DC, so if you're not more Marvel than DC, this probably is not the channel for you. I'm not saying that I don't like DC, I'm just saying I'm more Marvel than DC. Also, DC and Image, I'm kind of on the same smooth with that. But, you know, I only have certain DC characters that I like, and I only have certain Image characters that I like. As far as other things, I'm more closer to 1000% Marvel than I am DC. However, whichever one of them choose to give me an acting job, I'll take it. So, here's how this works. Back in 2008, which is like the last time I picked up a comic before 2010, there was a big retcon, whatever you want to call it, where they totally screwed up everybody in Marvel Universe. They started revamping people. The dawns of new superheroes like Miles Morales and all that came into play. So, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because a lot of the things that I watch in these videos don't reflect what my comic book knowledge is for Marvel or DC. Since this is more Marvel, we're going to go into characters in Marvel that they have like totally fracked up or don't acknowledge properly, etc., etc. As you guys know, Into the Spider-Verse was a great movie. It gave you Miles Morales, Penny Parker, Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker, another Peter Parker, and another Peter Parker, who, spoiler alert, didn't survive, which caused this big clusterfuck to begin with. And they changed some things around, and Miles Morales' world, his uncle was the Prowler, where in 616, Hobie Brown was the Prowler. For those who don't know, those two characters are not related in any way, shape, or form. And initially, Miles Morales, whatever Earth he came from, he came to the 616 and was stuck there. Now, Disney did the cartoon of how he got stuck there, and that version was pretty good. And he stayed with Team Spider-Man, with Agent Venom and all that stuff. And that was pretty good, you know. But like I said, we're going to go way back before Miles and them came in, because Spider-Man 2099 was Miguel O'Hara. And he's also, spoiler alert, makes an appearance in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The problem is, a lot of people don't really acknowledge Miguel O'Hara because his mutation was basically genetically modified. You know, not like Spider-Man, who was bitten by a spider, Gwen, who was bitten by a spider, Miles, who was bitten by a spider, Peter Parker, who was bitten by a spider, and every other Spider-Man in between that was bitten by spiders. Alright? Now, as far as Miguel O'Hara, they did gene splicing. If that makes sense, they did gene splicing. So, that being said, when you see him in Into the Spider-Verse, he's like the last one you see, but you have to wait for the credits to end and all the other stuff. And that's that. So we're going to go a little bit further back into like my favorites, the X-Men and stuff like that. So the X-Men is 10 years older than me. They came out in 1963. I was born in 1973. So that's 10 years of reading that I had to backlog, which means they got a lot of things done in those 10 years, which is why X-Men Classics came out. So because people wanted to read the classic X-Men instead of reading all the other stuff. And in the classic X-Men, they had the Phoenix Saga and all the other stuff that I have in my basement, you know. And also back then, Marvel had the rights of G.I. Joe and Transformers, which I will get into that by the end of the video if I don't forget. Or I'll have to make a two-parter and like that, make that a total separate thing. With the X-Men, you had your first lineup, which is what pissed me off when the cartoons started coming out, because the cartoons never introduce you to the X-Men properly. They never have. I don't know why, and it's something that has always pissed me off. And that's why this video starts right now with the X-Men First Class, all that. So, you've seen the X-Men First Class movie. Again, it does not introduce you to the X-Men properly, but neither did the X-Men movie that came before that. Neither did any of the X-Men cartoons that have come before that, outside of the ones and the attempts in the 60s. Those things were pretty bad. You know, I'm sure Stan Lee's laughing at me right now. Okay, so in the attempts in the 60s, those were the only ones that really introduced you to the first 5 X-Men. Those 5 X-Men are, here are their names and their code names. Scott Summers, Cyclops. Jean Grey, Marvel Girl. Warren Worthington III, Angel. Hank Henry McCoy, or Henry Hank McCoy, the Beast. And Robert Drake, a.k.a. Bobby Drake, a.k.a. Iceman. Now, Charles Xavier brought these 5 young people together and taught them how to do their powers. Now, for the 60s, you know, they were the top dog in the mutant world. They introduced the world into a new type of superheroes that were not genetically modified like Captain America, who weren't wearing superhuman suits like Iron Man, and more importantly, they weren't gods like Thor and Hercules and stuff like that. They were regular humans, just with the X gene, which made them superhuman. Okay? Now this thing was good, and it was great, and then the first 5 mutants graduated from being X-Men, and they brought in a new team. And in that new team, you had Lauren Dane, Polaris. You had Alex Summers, Havoc, which became Scott Summers' and younger brother. I don't remember how they found each other, but that came in. They weren't really introduced in the new X-Men, but they were in the old X-Men. They just didn't see any action. And Havoc was one of my favorite X-Men. To date, they've fracked him up so bad that he's no longer one of my favorite X-Men, but he's still in like the top 5. Okay, so they introduced Havoc and Lauren Dane. They rarely did a lot of things in those old comics, but once the new X-Men came in, and the new X-Men came in with John Thunder, excuse me, that's not right. His name is John, but his code name is Thunderbird. His actual name was John something else. What the hell was his name? His brother's Warpath, by the way. Why can't I think of his name? I just had a complete memory shutdown. Anyway, John is Thunderbird. Banshee, his name is Sean Cassidy. And then you have Kurt Wagner, the Nightcrawler. You had Wolverine, going by Logan at the time, because that was the only name he could remember. Then you had Storm, Aurora Monroe. And then you had Sunfire. I can't pronounce his name because he's Japanese. And then you had Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde was the youngest member, so that was an issue. And this is about the time that Havoc and Lauren Dane, or Polaris, gets to start their journey with the other X-Men. By this time, there are those 7 with the addition of them. And then they start having spin-off comics. Spin-off comics, The New Mutants. The New Mutants insisted on at least 13 or 14 characters, so I'm just going to go through as many of them as I possibly can remember. You have Doug, Warlock. You have Magic, which is Ileana Rasputin. You have Danielle Moonstar, which was Mirage. You have Samuel Guthrie, which was Cannonball. You have Roberto DaCosta, who was Sunspot. You have Renee St. Clair, who was Wolfsbane. And you have Kitty Pryde. You also have that unicorn horse that Danielle Moonstar got. I don't remember the name of the horse, but you have that. And then, topping off that, you can count Lockheed, because that was Kitty Pryde's dragon. But that comes in. These guys started in the late 70s, early 80s. Alright? So we're focusing mostly on the X-Men. John Proudstar is the name of Thunderbird. I don't know, it just came back to me. John Proudstar dies on their first mission. Banshee can't get to him in time, and eventually Banshee will suffer from some injuries, so he's kind of forced into retirement and goes back to Scotland and becomes a cop. Get away from my damn door. I know you see them damn lights.
I didn't even touch the door.
You near it. If I can hear you, so can everybody else. Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that. The whole thing was, after that happened, I think Sunfire made 3 or 4 more appearances, and then he was out. So they've never really introduced the X-Men cartoons properly. In every cartoon, they have never had all of the 5 main X-Men in it to win it outside of the 60s. The background moves, Iceman walks with his legs pointing out. You get to see some powers, same thing they did with like Captain America. So outside of that, one of the first cartoons I saw was called Pride of the X-Men. The lineup would be as follows. You had Colossus, you had Dazzler, you had Kitty Pryde, you had Nightcrawler, you had Storm, and you had Wolverine. Those 7. The bad guys consist of the Juggernaut, Toad, Emma Frost, Magneto, I'm missing somebody, the Blob. So you had those guys, alright? And that's pretty much it. You would think by the way the cartoon plays out that they were going to get a whole season, and that shit didn't happen. It's just that one episode which led the way to the 90s X-Men. And of course, totally fucked that up. But at least they had 3 of the original X-Men on the team. They had Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Beast. And when they introduce you to the team, they introduce you like so. You have Cyclops, Wolverine, Rogue, Beast, Jean Grey, Storm, and Jubilee, and Gambit. That's it. And you have Professor Xavier. Then they go on these outstanding adventures, and then the show goes off. They bring a new show back on called X-Men Evolution, where they actually bring in the New Mutants, and they have the 5 X-Men. But, again, not done right. Iceman is a New Mutant with the other New Mutants, with Tabitha Smith and all the other people. Avalanche and them are bad guys, and they have a school in which they go to instead of actually going to the Xavier School of the Gifted. Storm, Cyclops, Jean, Logan, they're all teachers. Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, the rest of the New Mutants, they're all students. And there's Rogue also, because she's also a student. And it goes from there. And it's a good dichotomy, and the cartoon worked, except for, as I said, they don't have the 5 X-Men in the positions that they're supposed to be in. So then they make another cartoon. Wolverine and the X-Men. Lo and behold, they still don't introduce you to the X-Men the way that they should do it. They don't introduce you to the 5 X-Men. They introduce you Wolverine and the X-Men. It's time jumping back and forth. You get to meet Emma Frost, you get to meet Bishop, you get to meet all kinds of other people. But you don't get those 5 X-Men that were the original. Because if you watch the first episode of Wolverine and the X-Men, Cyclops, Jubilee, and a lot of other motherfuckers, they're just dead. Because you see Wolverine running from Sentinels, trying to get back to Xavier's body. And, excuse me, I told that wrong. You see Xavier running, trying to get back to wherever the hell he was going, to try and do a time portal thing to tell his younger self, tell Wolverine's younger self. I forgot exactly how it works, but somewhere along the line I'm in about the correct, because this is what they did in X-Men The Last Stand, or something with the time. No, it's one of the Wolverine movies, I think. Wolverine's Origins. Either way, I'm confused, so I'm confusing you, so scratch that. Anyway, as you see on there, you have Wolverine, Emma Frost, Cyclops, Gambit. They're basically all fighting each other except for Wolverine and Cyclops, which only transferred over to them fighting each other. And Wolverine tried to give the mantle to Cyclops' leader, but he goes, no, you're doing just fine, and I'm going to be on my own. And then you don't have Jean Grey. You have Emma Frost as the main. You have Lauren Dane or Polaris as the main, but she's like confused and crazy. And then you have Nightcrawler. I don't think you have Kitty Pryde, but I can't remember because Wolverine and X-Men only got like a season and a half. But you understand, they never ever really introduce you to the 5 first X-Men, and they didn't carry any of those stories. Now you can go all the way back to where Jean and Cyclops gets married in the 90s, and Ruckus and the Nasty Boys attack them, because Ruckus and the Nasty Boys in the 90s, along with Scalp Hunter and the Reavers. I don't think he was a Reaver. No, he was not a Reaver. Scalp Hunter and them were with the Brotherhood or something. Maybe they were Reavers. They had a lot of enemies. No, they weren't Reavers, because Lady Deathstrike led the Reavers. But in the 90s, Ruckus and the Nasty Boys. I don't remember Scalp Hunter's group. When it hits me, I'll let you know. They did have the Reavers, because those were the people with the tanks. Things like that. Sorry, the reel is on. And the whole thing is that they've never introduced you to the first 5 X-Men and carried the story for like the first season for that. Now, had I had a job in making cartoons like that, being I'm an X-Men fan, I wouldn't have done it any other way but how Stan Lee and them did it in the original comic. I would have had each episode, one by one, bringing in the X-Men. The first episode, I would have brought in Cyclops. I would have brought in Jean in the next episode. I would have brought in Beast in the next episode. And I would have brought in Angel, and then I would have brought in Iceman because he was the youngest of the group. And then, for like maybe 3 or 4 episodes, you would have followed their story for a little bit. Then I would have brought in the other 7, starting with Logan, which he didn't come in first. Technically, Storm came in first because Xavier brought her from Egypt. Then after that, I would bring in Sunfire because he's Japanese. Then I would have brought in Thunderbird. I would have let him die on the first damn mission. Then Banshee because they were friends, etc. You lead into. Then I would have brought in the 3rd generation of them with the New Mutants, and I would have carried it on from there. However, there's a lot of characters, so a lot of voice actors would have to double up, just to save money. But the end of the storyline is they retconned everything that I know about all these people. So we will pick that up on part 2.